Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep into something incredible. Today we're tackling consciousness.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Consciousness is like the ultimate mystery, right?
Totally. It's like we all know we're conscious, we feel it every second, but how do you even begin to explain that scientifically?
Right, it gets super philosophical really fast.
Which we're not doing today. We are sticking to the science. We've got this awesome article from Scientific American all about it.
It's a wild ride, let me tell you. Neuroscience is getting seriously good at poking around in the brain, but consciousness is a whole other level.
Okay, so where do we even start?
Yep.
If I want to explain consciousness to like a robot, what's the first thing they need to know?
You got to start with the search for what's called the NCC, the neuronal correlates of consciousness.
NCC. Sounds kind of technical.
It is, a bit. But think of it this way. Say you're having a really vivid experience, like, I don't know, biting into a perfect slice of pizza.
Okay, I'm with you. Pizza, great example.
So the NCC is all about figuring out what's happening in your brain while you're tasting that pizza. Like, is there a specific group of neurons that only fires when you're having that exact experience?
So it's like a you are here marker, but for every single thing we could possibly be conscious of.
Exactly. But it's not just any brain activity, and we know that because of cases with, say, the spinal cord.
The spinal cord, I thought that was all about reflexes and stuff.
It does do that, super important, but you can actually have a complete spinal cord injury where the connection between your brain and most of your body is severed.
Oh, wow, that's awful, but I see where you're going with this.
And you'll still be conscious. You can think, feel emotions, all that stuff, even though the spinal cord isn't sending signals like it used to.
So that's crazy. The spinal cord's got tons of neurons, but it's not essential for consciousness itself.
And here's the other wild part. You can lose a good chunk of your cerebellum and still be totally conscious.
Wait, the cerebellum? Isn't that the thing that keeps us from, like, falling over all the time?
Yep, balance, coordination, all that jazz. But somehow it's not crucial for consciousness itself. Even though, and this is the kicker, it actually has the most neurons out of any brain region.
Hold on. More neurons, but not as important for consciousness. How does that work?
Right. It's a brain buster. And what this tells us is that consciousness isn't just about raw processing power or how many neurons you've got firing.
It's got to be something more specific about the way they're wired up, right?
Exactly. And a big clue comes from how the cerebellum actually works. It's mostly a feed-forward system. Information goes in one direction, no real looping back.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a one-way street versus...
Consciousness seems to need more of a bustling city vibe, info going everywhere, feedback loops galore.
So where is this city in the brain? Where are things getting really interesting for consciousness? A bustling city, huh? I like that.
Yeah.
So where in the brain are we headed? What's the hottest spot in town?
When neuroscientists are pointing to a region they call, get this, the posterior hot zone.
Okay, the posterior hot zone, that's got to be in the back of the brain, right? Posterior. But what makes it so hot?
So picture this, it's like the back half of your brain's cortex, covering areas like the parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. It's a whole thing back there. And it's not just about processing raw sensory data like sights and sounds. This is where researchers think our actual experience of the world starts to come together.
Okay, so it's not just I see a tree. It's I see a tree and it makes me feel this way.
Exactly. It's where sensations, emotions, memories, all that good stuff might be getting integrated into something more meaningful, something we experience as, well, us. Wow, okay, that's a lot happening in the hot zone.
Right.
So how do they even begin to figure that out? Like, how do you test if that's really what's going on?
One word, binocular rivalry.
Binocular. Okay, binocular makes me think of, like, those old-timey 3D glasses or something.
Sort of. Imagine you've got goggles on, but each eye is seeing a totally different image. Oh, that would probably give me a headache.
You'd think so, right? But your brain's way cooler than that. What happens is your perception flips back and forth between the two images. So you're only ever consciously aware of one at a time, even though your eyes are sending both to your brain.
No way. So it's like my brain is choosing which reality to experience? That's wild.
That's the crazy part. And get this, your primary visual cortex, the part that first gets info from your eyes, it shows activity for both images. But the posterior hot zone, that only lights up when you're consciously aware of that specific image.
So it's like the hot zone is the final decision maker. whatever's happening there, that's what I actually become conscious of.
Right, like it's filtering through all this input, and whatever makes it through to the hot zone, that's our conscious experience. And there's more. Researchers have actually been able to trigger specific experiences by directly stimulating parts of this hot zone.
Wait, hold up. Stimulating the brain? Is that, like, safe?
Yeah, it's a super precise technique. And when they do this, people report feeling sensations, even having hallucinations, depending on where they stimulate.
So, like, they could zap a certain spot, and I suddenly see the color purple, even though there's nothing actually purple around me.
That's the gist of it. And it really drives home how crucial this area is for our conscious awareness. We've known for ages that you can actually remove big chunks of the frontal lobe, and people's consciousness doesn't change drastically.
Well, really, the frontal lobe seems pretty important.
It is. For planning, decision-making, all that. But consciousness is a whole other ballgame. With the posterior hot zone, even small amounts of damage can have huge effects.
What do you mean by huge effects?
We're talking like losing the ability to see certain colors, recognize faces, even perceive motion.
Whoa. So it's not just some abstract thing. Damaging this hot zone can seriously mess with how you experience the world?
Big time. And it all points to this area being absolutely fundamental for consciousness. It's not just processing information, it's shaping how we become aware of it.
Okay, so we've got this hot zone, and we're getting a better idea of what it does. But how do those neurons firing actually create the feeling of subjective experience? Like,
Right.
that's still a huge jump, right?
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, how can we go from these tiny electrical signals to the feeling of, well, feeling anything at all? It's kind of mind-boggling.
It really is. And for the longest time, it felt like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. But get this, scientists have actually found ways to measure consciousness, and it's blowing my mind.
Wait, hold up. Measure consciousness. How do you even begin to do that? It's like totally spiritual, right? My consciousness is different from yours.
You'd think it's impossible, wouldn't you? But that's the amazing thing about science. They've come up with this incredible technique called, and I'm not kidding, zap and zip.
Zap and zip? You're messing with me, guys. That sounds like something out of a comic book.
I know, right? But it's actually incredibly sophisticated. So they use this thing called transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS for short. Basically, they use a focused magnetic pulse to activate specific neurons in the brain. It's like a little zap to get things going.
Okay, so they're literally zapping people's brains. I hope it doesn't hurt.
Totally painless. It's more like a gentle nudge than a jolt of electricity. And here's the cool part. That zap triggers a cascade of activity in the brain, kind of like ripples spreading out from a pebble dropped in a pond.
Okay, I'm picturing it. So they zap the brain, and then what? How do ripples tell us anything about consciousness?
That's where the zip comes in. They use an EEG, which measures electrical activity in the brain, to record those ripples, and then they analyze the complexity of the patterns. And here's the wild thing. A conscious brain shows a much more complex, intricate pattern of activity compared to an unconscious brain.
So it's like a conscious brain is having a much more dynamic conversation with itself. More back and forth, more connections being made.
That's the idea. It's like comparing a solo instrument to a full-blown symphony orchestra. The more conscious the brain, the richer and more complex the music.
That's an amazing analogy. And you're saying this zap and zip technique actually works?
It's surprisingly accurate. It can even tell the difference between levels of consciousness in people who are awake but unresponsive, like those in a coma.
Wow, that's incredible. To be able to potentially know if someone who seems completely unreachable is actually experiencing the world around them, that's a game changer.
Right. It's like finally having a window into someone's inner world when we thought all the curtains were drawn.
It's like those sci-fi movies where they can see people's thoughts or dreams, except this is real. And even with all these amazing tools and techniques, we're still grappling with the fundamental question, why? Why does all this neural activity, all this complex information processing actually feel like something?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to identify where things are happening in the brain, but quite another to explain the subjective experience of being that brain.
Yeah, and that's where things get really philosophical, which I know we said we'd avoid. But I'm curious, are there any scientific theories out there trying to explain the why at all?
Absolutely. And the Scientific American article we've been diving into does a great job of breaking down some of the leading contenders. One of the most popular is called Global Neuronal Workspace Theory, or GNW.
JNW, okay. What's the gist of that one?
Imagine you've got a big company with lots of different departments, each doing its own thing. GNW suggests that for you to become conscious of something, that information needs to be broadcast widely throughout the company, like a message on a loudspeaker system that everyone hears.
So it's not enough for one department to know something. It has to be shared company-wide for it to become conscious knowledge.
Exactly. And in the brain, that company-wide broadcast is happening across different brain regions. The idea is that consciousness arises from this widespread sharing of information, creating a unified experience.
That's a really cool way to think about it. But I'm guessing there are other theories out there too.
There are. And one that's been causing quite a stir is integrated information theory, or IIT.
IIT, all right. Hit me with that one. How's it different from G&W?
So while GNW focuses on how information is shared within the brain, IIT takes a much broader view. It suggests that consciousness isn't unique to brains at all. It could arise in any system that's complex and integrated enough.
Hold on. Are you saying that my phone could be conscious?
Well, that's a whole other can of worms. But the basic idea is that it's not about what a system is made of, neurons, computer chips, whatever. It's about the way those elements are organized and how they interact.
So it's all about complexity and connection. Like the more intricate and interconnected something is, the more likely it is to be conscious.
Exactly. And IIT even proposes a way to measure the amount of consciousness a system possesses, something they call phi. The higher the phi, the more conscious the system.
Whoa, so you could theoretically measure the phi of a human brain and compare it to, say, a supercomputer.
Theoretically, yes, although we're a long way from being able to do that accurately. But it raises some fascinating questions, doesn't it?
It totally does, and I think it highlights just how much we still don't know. But hey, that's part of what makes this whole exploration so exciting, right?
Absolutely. It's like we're standing at the edge of a vast, uncharted territory, and we're just starting to glimpse the amazing things that might be out there.
Well, I don't know about you, but my brain is definitely buzzing after that deep dive. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the mysteries of consciousness.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time, keep those minds curious.